Hey, what's up everyone, it's Justin here, and today I've got the full comparison for you between the new HTC One M9 and the Apple iPhone 6. So the new HTC One M9 does bring some improvements when compared to its predecessor, the HTC One M8. However, many would argue that for the most part, the device has stayed the same. On the other hand, we will be comparing it to the Apple iPhone 6, which was released at fall last year and was completely redesigned that time around. And of course, when Apple comes up with their next iteration of the iPhone later this year, I will be comparing it to the HTC One M9 once again. Getting some of the basic specs out of the way, the iPhone 6 runs an Apple A8 chip with a 64-bit processor clocked in at 1.4 GHz with 1 GB of RAM, while the HTC One M9 runs the new Snapdragon 810 processor, which is a 2.2 GHz quad-core processor with a quad-core coprocessor and 3 GB of RAM. So when you first look at these two smartphones, they're both absolutely beautiful. The iPhone 6 does have a smooth aluminum finish, while the HTC One M9 this time around has more of a polished look to it compared to its predecessor. The iPhone 6 measures in at 138.2 millimeters tall, while the HTC One M9 measures in at 144.6. However, it does have a larger display, of course. And with many people out there appreciating metal construction nowadays, I think both companies have done a great job in terms of build construction. Flipping it over to the front of the devices, the iPhone 6 does have just a smooth piece of glass that runs throughout the front of the device, while the HTC One M9 does have its boom sound speakers on the top and bottom, and both of them of course have their front-facing cameras. On the bottom, however, the iPhone 6 does have a physical home button with of course the Touch ID fingerprint sensor, which works great. While on the One M9 you do have the on-screen buttons like we saw last year, which are customizable by the way. However, there is no fingerprint sensor present. When it comes to the overall thickness of the devices, the HTC One M9 measures in at 9.61 millimeters thick, and the iPhone 6 comes in at 6.9 millimeters thick and weighs in at 129 grams as opposed to 157 grams on the M9. Of course, on the bottom of the iPhone 6, you will find its 8-pin Lightning dock connector, the 3.5mm headphone jack, as well as the speaker port. On the other hand, the HTC One M9 has its micro USB port as well as a 3.5mm headphone jack. However, the speakers are located on the front, so hats off to HTC for that. Because as we know from the past, the speakers were probably one of the best features on HTC devices. When it comes to the display, the iPhone 6 has a 4.7-inch 1334 by 750 resolution 326 ppi display. On the HTC One M9, you've got a 5-inch 1920 by 1080 resolution display with a 441 ppi, as it has stayed the same as what we saw on the M8. Neither of these devices have jumped into the QHD game, but in my opinion that is completely fine. They are still extremely clear, and the colors are also vivid and sharp as well. You really couldn't go wrong with either one. However, I will comment that the HTC One M9's display is slightly more saturated, and for some people they may like that, which you may be able to notice when you see these two images on both smartphones side by side. Moving on to the software, although we have already seen many differences between these two devices, this is perhaps the biggest. Of course, on the iPhone 6 you're running iOS 8, while on the HTC One M9 you're running Android 5.0 Lollipop with HTC Sense 7 Skin. The Sense 7 Skin has definitely brought forward some improvements from last year, however for the most part it has stayed the same, and in terms of everyday use, I haven't really been able to notice that many things changed from last year, which is actually a good thing, as I really enjoyed the Sense software. So to give you a quick overview, HTC gives you a very unique Android experience. Of course, many manufacturers nowadays do have their own news feed, and in this case that is Blink Feed. Blink Feed allows you to select your topics of interest and have them located to the left of your home screen, and by the way, you can turn that off if you're not a fan of it, but I feel that they do present the information in a very visual, appealing way and allow you to access it very easily at any time. And what I've loved about HTC Sense is that it maintains a very simple interface, keeping the animations and everything very clean, and the visual experience is just beautiful. The app drawer does stay the same with the vertical scroll. They've also brought forward some improvements on the home screen with a widget that allows you to have applications ready to go wherever you are, whether you are at home, work, or the office. This allows you to select specific apps that you will use at different places and also add locations to the point where as you arrive at that place, the application drawer will switch to your convenience. Heading over to the notification tab and quick toggle settings, this part has pretty much stayed the same, and I have to say I was a pretty big fan of that as well. Again, very visually appealing, and it stays out of the way when you need it to. The clean look is noticed once again in the settings tab, and they have also added many customization settings for your home screen and interface experience this year. Through the Themes app, you are able to personalize your colors, the theme in general, and even icon packs to give it a nice personal experience based on your taste. Now heading over to iOS, the experience is completely different as you would expect. As we are used to, the apps are located in a grid on the home screen and everything is just right there and very easy for you to access. That being said, there isn't many customization options aside from being able to move around your apps and changing your wallpaper. Of course, from sliding up from the bottom, they will give you some quick toggle settings through Control Center, being able to set the brightness and volume, and that is definitely very handy. And in the notification tabs, Apple this year actually did introduce some widgets to your notification tab, which allows you to track certain things, and that is definitely a great addition. But what it really comes down to is what type of experience you are looking for and whether you are okay with what things Android may be missing or iOS may be missing if you side one way or the other. However, I will say iOS has definitely evolved over the years, especially with its recent updates adding many features that are heading in the right direction. The clean interface is still being seen, and the responsiveness of the software and the apps still has me personally using iOS. But if you enjoy full control and customization over your device, or being able to tweak certain things through root, iOS may not be for you. But on the other hand, if you're looking for a simple and what you see is what you get interface, iOS is probably what you may want to look into. So now on to the camera. The HTC One over the past years has definitely struggled in this category, and this year HTC has finally moved away from the ultra pixel camera technology that they were so fond about a few years ago. So they moved it over to the front and put in a new camera for the back. You'll now find a 20 megapixel camera with the capability to record 4K video, while in the front you do have your HTC Ultra Pixel camera with the ability to record full HD video. On the other hand, the iPhone 6 features an 8 megapixel rear-facing iSight camera. However, in the past years, although Apple may not be the prettiest on the spec sheet, they have been said to take the most consistent photos with their camera. And on the front you will find a 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera. Giving you a quick glance at the software, you'll see that iOS has a very simple interface once again. You just need to slide through different settings, whether it is panoramic, square photo, slow motion, and you also have some options for filter as well. Personally, fade is my favorite. You do also have some options on the side, including the flash, HDR, the timer, and flipping between the cameras. Other than that, there really isn't much to navigate in the camera app itself, so they have kept it very simple. You are not able to adjust things like the exposure, the white balance in the live view. Taking a look at HTC software, I actually really enjoyed this last year. The visual experience once again was great, but they do give you much more settings to play around with. And to switch over to the cameras, you just need to slide down on the screen. And in the settings, they give you the option to adjust things like the white balance, your exposure, and even set custom cameras and download some new functions for the camera as well. So I know a lot of people out there like to play around with the camera and set the settings in order to get the perfect photo, while others would rather just take out their camera and take the photo, trusting that the camera knows what it's doing. So from comparing the pictures that these two phones take, I would say that the iPhone 6 did a very good job in balancing exposure. With the HTC One M9, although some of the pictures definitely looked pretty good, the issue was consistency. And it almost seems as if some of the photos were way overexposed or way underexposed. When it came to the front-facing camera though, the photos that the M9 takes are definitely better when compared to the iPhone 6. So when it came to the video test, I did mention that the HTC One M9 does have the capability to record 4K video, while the iPhone 6 records 1080p video. Once again, the results coming from the HTC One M9 were somewhat mediocre. However, I do think a lot of the issues that I have seen with the camera early on can be fixed through software. But the iPhone, on the other hand, delivered very consistent results, and it definitely showed that whatever's on the spec sheet in terms of the megapixel count doesn't really reflect on the quality directly. When it comes to speakers on smartphones, HTC has been the king of this category since the HTC One M7. With their boom sound speakers, they've always been front-facing and they sound absolutely amazing with the processing that goes behind it, and also the fact that they're just facing towards you, which makes sense. So I often wonder why other manufacturers haven't done so as well. but let's just give you guys a quick sound test. So the last thing I would like to test is the benchmark. So when you compare something like an iPhone to an Android device, the benchmark test usually wouldn't be considered fair, as the scores definitely do not reflect on everyday performance. Apple has definitely proven over the years that they don't need the craziest specs or the high gigahertz counts or additional RAM, as the devices do run just fine. But for those who are still wondering, here are the benchmark scores in Geekbench 3, Antutu, and 3D Mark. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and this has just been a full comparison between the Apple iPhone 6 and the new HTC One M9. And I gotta say, the HTC One M9, although it is a good phone, it just really isn't enough to justify why you should be getting rid of your M8. As although the camera is theoretically improved, it was quite disappointing. However, if you are coming from another device and trying to decide between these two smartphones, I would say the HTC One M9 offers a great option because it has the boom sound speakers, the display size isn't overly large, and the metal build construction, which many may appreciate, along with the great visual experience and customization in Set 7. However, if you are looking for a simpler experience or use a camera a lot and are already deeply integrated into Apple's ecosystem with the Mac or other Apple devices, the iPhone 6 would be your choice. But other than that, be sure to let me know which device you prefer in the comment section below, and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.